dark times had us praying for some brighter days. Wishing well, but I'm really hoping for a change. Yeah.
This is Change Makers. I'm Eric Alvarez here with Ashley Holt. And Ashley, we have another fantastic guest today. Who are we talking to?
We do. Okay, so this is Dr. Ebony online, if you're on Instagram, mental health professional extraordinaire. I'm so excited to talk to you because Dr. Ebony, in all of the Changemaker conversations we've had, mental health has come up. So I just really am excited to be able to break those things down with you. I want to read people some of your qualifications, if you will. The resume is long, so I won't go through all of it, but you have created My Therapy Cards, you're a food relationship strategist, and a trauma expert. And that's where I want to start because I feel like we all, millennials, Gen Z, we say trauma a lot, like whether joking or like, we're trying to figure out this mental health thing, Eric, and like make it as conversational as possible. But talk to us about what trauma is, because I feel like a lot of people think you have to go through something devastating in order to have trauma.
Yeah, that's definitely a good question and something that we need to clear up because it floats around. But trauma is, in its simplistic terms, is something that significantly disrupts the way that you do life or disrupts the way that you function in your life. Now, that can be something that you've experienced or something that was passed down to you. So when we talk about trauma, we also have to talk about epigenetics. That means the things that generationally your people have experienced that's been passed down through genetics. And so those things could be slavery, enslavement, war, violence, those kinds of things still live in our bodies.
So Doctor, I'm fascinated that you mentioned epigenetics. It's something my father studies. He's a molecular biologist, and just want to make sure that we, whoever's watching and listening, is really clear on this. This is something that can happen generations past, that can still, even if it didn't happen to us, we didn't necessarily witness this, we didn't experience it ourselves, and it can still have an impact. Is that right?
You mentioned slavery.
Yes. So one of the things that I think is fascinating, and I read it in a book, is when your mom is 5 months pregnant with you, you have all of the things, all of the cells you're going to need to function as a human or to be a human, right? To be a complete human when you're born. So if you think about what your mom may have been experiencing at 5 months, and then you take that into consideration of what your life is and the things that you experience. You think about what her mom experienced when her mom was 5 months pregnant with her and so on, right? So if we're coming from a line of people who have experienced things, think about that 5 month time period or that moment, and think about the things that we've all been exposed to even in the womb while we were developing. So that stuff is passed down, the anxiety, the depression, the fear, the wired nervous system. All of those things tend to exist, and I think that it's important that we understand epigenetics and how it's passed down so that we can understand all of the things that we may be experiencing day to day.
Yeah. When I'm hearing you speak, I'm thinking of people on the internet. I see it a lot from Black people, but I have my own echo chamber on my social media sometimes. I think we all do. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking of, you hear people talk about generational curses. I also hear so many people talking about, I want to have generational wealth. Like it seems like communities of color often feel like they're starting from zero. And so the goal isn't just for me, it's for, my family, everyone around me, right? And so I wonder, what are ways that you see people trying to address their trauma incorrectly? Like it looks good on social media, or you see the conversations and you're like, ooh, yeah, no, that's not the best way to go about that. Your intentions are great, but not the right way.
Yeah. Positivity. And I know there's a term for it called toxic positivity, right? But one of the things is trying to be so positive that we think it away or think the things didn't happen, or if we just put a positive spin on it, then we'll be okay. And that is one of the major things I think gets in the way for people, is trying to see everything from a positive lens. Some stuff is just horrible. Some stuff is just bad, and we need to name that and experience that and allow ourselves to go through the emotions. The other thing I think is avoidance. We engage in avoidance a lot in relationships. I think the culture that we're in now makes canceling people okay. It makes ghosting people okay. So when we're doing this, we call this avoidance and distancing. So you don't really have to deal with the issues that you're experiencing. You can just act like they're not happening or distracting yourself from them. And those aren't necessarily good ways to get your nervous system in alignment.
Yeah.
So, Doctor, as you were talking, I had this idea, this thought that hopefully is a little bit more hopeful, I guess you could say. If we can inherit all of this trauma, and now we can realize it based on your explanation here, doesn't that give us the opportunity to then pass on better things if we can work on this?
Right.
Is that something that is possible if we can deal with it, but we can make it better?
Absolutely. If you can pass down the generational bad things, you can definitely pass down the good things, right? That's why I think generational wealth and things like that are so helpful to bring into this conversation. So if I get to a place where I learn how to regulate my mood, I learn how to regulate my anxiety, I learn how to regulate my nervous system, then I break up the wiring that has happened in my brain and in my body that responds automatically to threat. Right. So if I'm always in fight, flight, freeze response, then if I learn how to calm that down and remove myself from survival mode functioning, then I also pass that down. I pass down a more stable nervous system. I pass down less anxiety. I pass down less depression. So those things can happen, and you pass down a more calm, so people who are more calm in their bodies. And so those things are definitely possible as well.
Dr. Ebony, I want to thank you so much for your time. I was looking forward to this conversation, and you definitely taught me a lot as someone who feels like she's trying to approach mental health. I know, Eric, we have these conversations all the time. So thank you for coming here
Thank you so much, Doctor.
yeah, putting your expertise in there. We appreciate you and your time.
Thank y'all so much for having me.